Can a single leadership change save Ferrari from your technical and strategic collapse in full 2025 season? Ferrari began the 2025 season loaded with promises. After touching the Constructors' Championship in 2024, the signing of Lewis Hamilton, one of the most resonant moves in the team's recent history, was interpreted as the final blow they needed to dethrone McLaren. It was supposed to be the year of the definitive resurgence. However, the narrative changed drastically. The illusion was rapidly replaced by frustration, strategic errors, and an alarming disability to adapt to the technical demands of the season. The car, although promised a solid base, showed balance problems, loss of rhythm in long batches, and erratic behavior under changing conditions, as evidenced in the Great Awards of Australia and China. The numbers are overwhelming. After just 9 races, the team is already 197 points behind McLaren. This differential, in an era where mechanical reliability is very high and strategic errors are paid expensive, is practically insurmountable. The sensation within the paddock is clear. Ferrari is failing not for lack of talent, but for a disconnection between its ambitions and its technical and operational execution. Lewis Hamilton, a 7-time world champion, has had to assume one more adaptation role than track leadership. His beginning with the SF25 was injured, with constant internal struggles to adjust the car to his pilot style. Under wet conditions and in critical qualifying sessions, the decisions of the wall were slow, conservative, and, in many cases, counterproductive. The frustration of the British pilot was publicly exposed several times, as well as that of Charles Leclerc, who after an optimistic beginning has been trapped again in erratic dynamics that remind the worst moments of Ferrari in the last decade. Frédéric Vasseur, team director since 2023, is in the center of the hurricane. What began as a stabilization process under his command by reducing mistakes in boxes and strengthening internal management now seems to have crossed out. His leadership, according to Italian media, has lost weight within Maranello's structure. The reports indicate that there is a worrying disconnection between Vasseur and the technical departments, added to a perception that Ferrari's internal culture does not fully understand. In Maranello, where internal policy is as critical as aerodynamics, that perception is lethal. The double disqualification in China was the drop that filled the glass. Not only was it a sporty blow, it was also symbolic. In a race where Hamilton had shown at the sprint, the team failed to capitalize on the moment. Instead of building on a solid result, they fell into basic errors of technical regulations. That, for a team like Ferrari, it is not simply a failure, it is a public humiliation. All this has intensified rumors and leaks on an imminent relay. Traditional team structures begin to creak and, as has historically happened in Ferrari, the reaction is usually drastic. The margin for correction is increasingly narrow. The external pressure of the press is combined with the internal executives, technicians and engineers who demand a new course. Vasseur's credibility is at the limit. The team's address seems to be looking for a figure capable of resuming control from within, with technical authority, knowledge of the Ferrari ecosystem, and above all, demonstrable results. Antonello Coletta is not a name that has emerged overnight. Actually, it has more than 2 decades within the Ferrari ecosystem, ascending step to step in a structure known for being ruthlessly demanding. His career within the company began with minor responsibilities such as the coordination of the Ferrari Challenge, but as he was demonstrating his organizational, technical, and leadership competence, he was climbing until he took control of increasingly strategic areas, including the management of the successful GT program and, later, of the Ferrari resurgence in the World Resistance Championship, WEC. What differentiates Coletta from other names that have circulated as possible Ferrari team directors is that their legitimacy does not come from politics or marketing, not even exclusively from their past as an engineer. It comes directly from the results. In the last 3 years, under his leadership, Ferrari has won the 24 Hours of Le Mans consecutively, a milestone that was not seen from the glorious era of the 60s. That return to the Olympus of resistance car was not accidental. It was the result of meticulous planning, an impeccable management of human and technical resources, and of an unusual capacity to integrate the Ferrari's tradition with a modern vision of the competition. The Coletta figure has also been key in another aspect that usually goes unnoticed: its ability to weave internal alliances within Maranello. It is not a stranger. Know the corridors, the unwritten codes, the tensions between departments, and the strengths of the technical personnel who have been in the shadow of the F1 team. Unlike Vasseur, Coletta would not need an adaptation curve to understand how decisions are made in Ferrari. In fact, your experience in programs where logistics, tactical precision, and career management are even more complex than in Formula One gives it a clear competitive advantage. The success of Ferrari 499P in the WEC has also been a proof of its long-term vision. Coletta opted for a design philosophy that many considered conservative, prioritizing reliability and stability in extreme conditions above technical risk. The result? An unbeatable car in Le Mans from its debut, and a structure that has been able to respond to the adversities of each circuit. These types of decisions, made in silence but supported by incontestable victories, are those that build solid reputations in elite motoring. But there is something more important. His figure generates consensus. Within Ferrari, many engineers who feel marginalized today by the direction of Vasseur would see in Coletta an opportunity to meet a more technical philosophy, more focused on teamwork and less on political pressure. This is crucial because in an environment like that of the Scuderia, where internal divisions have been multiple generations cancer, unifying leadership is not a luxury, it is an urgent need. Therefore, when the Italian media began to filter that Coletta would be the natural replacement of Vasseur at the end of 2025, it was not simply a rumor. He was interpreted as a sign that Ferrari wants to return to his roots, but without losing the focus on modern competitiveness. It is not a nostalgic return, but a restructuring with someone who understands the weight of the Ferrari shield, but also the 10th margins that define a season of Formula 1. From Italy you no longer speak in condition. The figure of Antonello Coletta as successor of Frédéric Vasseur is treated as an consummated fact that only expects an official confirmation. And while the season has not yet reached its midpoint, within the paddock the conversation has changed. It is no longer discussed if the relay will be done, but when and how it will be executed. This context opens an internal transition scenario that will probably be one of the most delicate and determining processes for Ferrari in the last decade. The Scuderia is not simply replacing a team director. It is reconfiguring its power architecture in the midst of a sports and technical crisis. The possible arrival of Coletta marks the beginning of a new leadership model that could deeply disrupt the foundations of the Ferrari technical project. In modern Formula 1, a director not only manages races, also directs the narrative of the team, conditions the internal development policy, and most importantly, decide how and in what to invest the time and resources of the wind tunnel and the simulator. Coletta is not a neutral manager. He is a technician who believes in the continuity of efficient processes and in the elimination of redundant structures. If your ascent is confirmed, it is highly likely that immediate changes in engineering management will occur, in the hierarchy of the aerodynamic department, and in the criteria to define the 2026 car. This point is key because Ferrari is just months to begin the critical phase of the design of his car for the next regulation. Any instability in the technical direction at this time can mortgage the competitiveness of the equipment for years. But paradoxically, keeping Vasseur amid a loss of legitimacy also represents a similar risk. The choice is complex. Either it is committed to the fragile stability of the known, or the cost of a restructuring now to build a coherent future is assumed. In addition, leadership change will not occur in a vacuum. Lewis Hamilton, in his first season with Ferrari, needs a solid and predictable technical environment to maximize his performance. The British not only represents a millionaire investment, it is also a media figure whose public perception can define Ferrari's story in the coming years. If Coletta enters and modifies the technical structure, the key will be its ability to build a functional alliance with Hamilton. This implies more than strategic meetings. It requires a shared vision of how to develop the car, how to manage races, and how to answer when things go wrong. Hamilton, accustomed to an environment like Mercedes where every detail was adjusted to his driving style, will not accept improvised or erratic management. On the other side of the garage, Charles Leclerc faces an even more complex situation. After several years as the visible face of the Ferrari project, he must now share the prominence with one of the great names of the history of sport. His relationship with Vasseur came from years ago, and losing that ally can leave it exposed in future decisions. The challenge for Coletta will be to prevent this double leadership on track from becoming a focus of conflict. And finally is the symbolic factor. If Coletta assumes the position, Ferrari will send a clear message to the world that he has lost patience, who wants immediate results, and that he is willing to abandon foreign experiments to retrust internal talent. This gesture can reinforce the identity of the team, restore the confidence of the tifosi and their own workers, but also raise expectations to dangerous levels. If the results do not arrive quickly, the new leadership could become hostage to their own narrative. Ferrari's story in 2025 cannot be understood as a simple disappointing season. It is, in reality, a transition chapter that could completely redefine the future of the Scuderia in the modern era of Formula 1. The change of Vasseur by Antonello Coletta is not just a replacement of names, It is a reflection of a deeper struggle between two visions of what Ferrari should be. A centered on corporate efficiency, international image, and the decentralized management model. Another, more entrenched in the technical tradition of Maranello, in the unique project philosophy and in the obsession to restore the mystique of the Red House through tangible results, not empty promises. This vision's conflict is happening in the worst possible time, when the category is at the gates of another great regulatory change by 2026. The decisions that are made today will define whether Ferrari competes by championships or gets lost again in their own labyrinth of media pressure, internal policy, and expectations not managed. And they know that both inside and outside the team, there is no space for prolonged errors.